Have you ever met someone who walked into your life and turned your world upside down? Not with their charm, but with their pain, their strength, and their heart. Well, tonight you're about to hear a story that'll make you believe that love finds you when you least expect it. So, before we begin, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heart-touching stories that will stay with you long after they end. Now, let's dive into the story of Adrian Blackwood, the cold millionaire CEO, and Leah, the girl who made him feel again. Adrian Blackwood was known across the city as the man who built an empire but lost his soul doing it. At 35, he had everything: luxury cars, private jets, and a skyline penthouse that looked like it belonged in a magazine. But behind that glass view and designer suit was a man frozen by the ghosts of his past. Adrian had been burned before, betrayed by the woman he once planned to marry. Since then, emotions weren't his thing. Love was a weakness he swore never to touch again. So, when his best friend Noah set him up for another blind date, Adrian almost laughed. He had agreed only to get it over with. One last attempt to prove to everyone that he wasn't made of ice. "This will be the last one," he muttered to himself as his black Rolls-Royce pulled up to the quiet little cafe downtown. It wasn't the kind of place he usually visited. Too ordinary, too soft for a man like him, but something in the simplicity of it felt strangely peaceful. He stepped inside and the smell of fresh coffee brushed past him like a quiet memory. That's when he saw her. Leah. She wasn't what he expected. No glamorous dress, no heavy makeup, no diamonds glinting under the light. She wore a soft white sweater, her brown hair tied loosely behind her neck, and eyes that looked like they'd seen both heaven and hell, and still chose to shine. She stood when he approached, nervous yet composed, like she wasn't sure if she should smile. "Mr. Blackwood?" she asked softly. He nodded, his usual sharpness softened by something unfamiliar. "Adrian, please. You must be Leah." They sat down, and for a few moments, the silence between them was awkward, the kind of silence that usually pushed people away. But with Leah, it felt safe. She didn't rush to fill the silence. She just smiled gently and took a sip of her coffee, as if saying, "It's okay. Take your time." Adrian had been through countless dates, women who wanted his money, his fame, his name, but this one felt different. Leah didn't seem interested in his wealth. In fact, she barely mentioned it. She asked about his favorite books, about what he used to enjoy before business took over his life. For the first time in years, Adrian found himself talking, not calculating. "Do you believe people can change?" Leah asked suddenly, her eyes drifting toward the window. Adrian hesitated. "People don't change," he said coldly. "They just learn to hide their true selves better." She smiled faintly. "Maybe, or maybe, they just need the right reason to." That line hit him harder than he expected. He wanted to ask what she meant, but something about her tone, gentle yet heavy, told him it came from pain, and he didn't want to pry. Not yet. As the evening went on, Leah's quiet warmth began melting the frost he'd built around his heart. She laughed softly, never too loud, and every time she looked at him, it felt like she saw through the walls he thought were unbreakable. When the date ended, Adrian did something he hadn't done in years. He walked her home, but when they reached her apartment building, a small worn place on a quiet street, she turned and said, "Thank you for tonight, Adrian. You didn't have to say yes." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked down, clutching her bag. "Most people don't like surprises, especially when they find out about me." Before he could ask, a sound echoed from the building's entrance, the faint metallic click of a wheelchair. Adrian froze as Laya quietly sat down in it, adjusting the brakes with gentle ease. "A car accident 3 years ago," she said softly, not looking at him. "I can still walk short distances, but most days this is my reality." Adrian didn't move, not out of pity, but out of shock. Not because of what she was, but because of how strong she looked sitting there, proud and calm. She smiled shyly. "Most men don't like it. I understand if Laya," he interrupted, his voice lower now, softer. "You don't need to explain anything." That night, when he got home, Adrian couldn't sleep. For the first time in years, someone had made him feel again. Not because of what they had, but because of who they were. But what he didn't know was that Laya was hiding something deeper, something that would change both their lives forever. The next few weeks felt different. Adrian found himself waiting for Lila's messages, her laughter, her quiet encouragement that somehow made him believe he wasn't as broken as he thought. He visited her often, sometimes bringing coffee, sometimes nothing at all, just to sit and talk. He didn't realize it then, but he had started smiling more. His staff noticed, his friends noticed, even he noticed. One evening, while they were at her favorite park, Adrian asked, "Why me? You knew who I was, cold, arrogant, emotionally unavailable. Why even agree to this date?" Laya looked up at the fading sky and smiled. "Because sometimes the people who seem the coldest are the ones who need warmth the most." Adrian chuckled. "You talk like you've known pain." She turned to him then, her expression suddenly distant. "I have," she said quietly. "But I also know what it's like to heal someone else's." There was a story behind those eyes. He could feel it, and when she finally told him, it shattered his heart. Laya had once been engaged. The man she loved had left her after the accident, saying he couldn't handle the burden. The words nearly destroyed her. For months, she lived in silence, trapped in her apartment, hating the world, hating herself. Until one day, she decided she wasn't going to let that be her story. She started therapy, volunteered at hospitals, helped others who were going through the same pain she once did. That's when Noah, Adrian's friend, met her during a charity event. And that's how this date came to be. Adrian's chest ached. He saw himself in her, both broken in different ways, but holding on through strength. And that night, he did something unexpected. He opened up, told her about his betrayal, his trust issues, his loneliness. Despite all the success, Laya didn't judge him. She just listened. That night, for the first time, Adrian didn't feel alone. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Their bond deepened quietly, without drama, without promises, just presents. But one day, Laya stopped replying to his calls. Her number went unanswered. Panic clawed at his chest until he finally found out she had been admitted to the hospital. She was battling a spinal infection that had returned after years. Her condition was serious. Adrian rushed there, terrified, angry at himself for not knowing sooner. When he entered her room, she was pale but smiling weakly. "Adrian," she whispered, "don't look at me like that. I'm okay." "No, you're not," he said, his voice breaking. "You should have told me." She smiled sadly. "You already did so much. I didn't want to be another burden." "Lila, you're not a burden," he said, his eyes wet. "You're the only thing that makes sense in my life right now." Tears welled in her eyes as she reached for his hand. "Then promise me something. Don't stop living, even if I can't stay." He shook his head violently. "Don't you dare say that." But Laia only smiled. Adrian, you taught me that even the coldest hearts can love again. Now, let me teach you that love doesn't end when someone leaves. It just changes form. A week later, she was gone peacefully. Adrian didn't show up to work for a month. The man who once lived for control now couldn't find meaning in anything. But one morning, he found a letter in his mailbox from Laia. If you're reading this, I probably didn't get to say goodbye. But don't let that be the end. I want you to live, to love again, to smile. You once told me people don't change. Well, you did, and you changed me, too. Thank you for everything. Adrian folded the letter and looked out the window, the sunrise painting the city gold. For the first time, he whispered to himself, "You were right, Laia. People can change." He opened his foundation that same year, the Laia Hope Foundation for Spinal Recovery Patients. And from that day on, every morning began not with loneliness, but with gratitude. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more emotional stories that remind you love can heal even the coldest hearts. Broken Heart Sparkles.